Hey guys, good morning. Here we are jumping into Psalms chapter 9. It's a beautiful psalm, and it's going to cover kind of three core topics as we get into it. And these are going to be super critical for our life as we get to walk out our faith. These are things which we really have to respond to. So it's kind of a long psalm, so I'm only going to read the first 10 verses. That covers kind of the breadth of the entirety of the psalm, actually. Hopefully, you spend the rest of your quiet time reading through the entirety of it. But here we are. We're in verse 1 of Psalm 9. I will praise you, O Lord, with my whole heart. I will tell of all your marvelous works. I will be glad and rejoice in you. I will sing praise to your name, O Most High. When my enemies turn back, they shall fall and perish at your presence. You have maintained my right and my cause. You sat on the throne judging righteousness. You have rebuked the nations. You have destroyed the wicked. You have blotted out their name forever and ever. O enemy, destructions are finished forever, and you have destroyed cities. Even their memory has perished, but the Lord shall endure forever. He has prepared his throne for judgment. He shall judge the world in righteousness. He shall administer judgment of the peoples in uprightness. The Lord will be a refuge for the oppressed, a refuge in times of trouble. And those who know your name will put their trust in you. For you, Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you. Awesome, guys. So here's what we see. This is beautiful, right? So we start out and we see the first thing that David's speaking of. He says, listen, right there in verse 1, I will praise you with my whole heart. Right? As believers, there are so many things that are there to try to captivate our heart, to try to pull us away in areas which we should never seek to go. And even if they tend to be good, David's like, listen, you've got 100% of everything that I have and everything that I am is laid out right here before you, Lord. I'm going to worship you with the whole of my heart, every bit of the affection, every bit of the mind, every bit of the might of a man. All of those things are going to be there focused on one thing, and that's going to be the Lord. Now, that's basically what we're told in the first commandment. You should love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, right? So that's what he's saying. Listen, he's making this declaration, knowing that David also would have a heart that would still waver in that moment. And at that time, he says, listen, I'm giving you everything. It is such a necessity every single day for us to be in a position to say, listen, Lord, I'm going to give you my whole heart. And even if my whole heart is not with you, Lord, I pray that you would do what is necessary so that my whole heart would be with you. Then it continues on. And it starts to talk a lot about his enemies. We know that David had constant enemies, constant difficulties and struggles. Whenever you're the king or you're at the top, you have to just be ready for those kind of things. And what does he do? He takes the fact that even though he was king and he could righteously judge, or even though he may at some point in time he was leader and he could be able to execute his justice, he trusts in the Lord. Right? He says, God's going to be the one who's going to deal with righteousness. He's going to deal with judgment. And he just allows the Lord to deal with it. That was one of the craziest things. As you look at the life of David and you follow through, how many times was he so patient when he could have brought about justice and judgment? He stopped. He stopped short and allowed the Lord to do his work and be patient with the working of God, knowing that that is a far better approach than just coming out slinging rocks, right? Or you can just remember the time in the cave when he had a chance to be able to kill Saul, who was coming after him to kill him. And instead, he just cuts off a little piece of his garment. And even in doing so, he felt atrocious, knowing that God should be the judge. And that's the only one that he should put his hope in. So what's that for us? You know, guys, we oftentimes can quickly find ourselves in a position of anger or frustration, or even looking at our world and say, God, why don't you just judge it? And then we try to start taking things in our own hand by holding on to bitterness and anger and frustration and going on message boards and forums and all kinds of things, thinking that we're going to change the world by debating some political or some other topic. And it's just ridiculous. All the while, the Lord is God set in place a much grander and greater plan to be able to judge the world in its unrighteousness. And we just have to trust in that. We ourselves have to make sure our whole heart is turned to the Lord. And finally, it tells us this, and I love verse 9, the Lord will be a refuge for the oppressed, a refuge in times of trouble. What's a refuge? It's going to be a safe place when attacks come. You know, guys, there is no safer place than for us to take refuge in the Lord, to just simply trust Him with every single area of our life, even as it feels like enemy is attacking our family, enemy is attacking us, or we have all these things coming in on us. And we could have two choices. One, God, why in the world did you allow this to happen to me? Or two, we can choose to say, the Lord, I'm going to just simply rest in you because you are the only one that I can have hope in. And that's exactly here what David does in such a special and spectacular way. He says, listen, you know what? You're my refuge when the times are troubled, when it's difficult, when it's hard. And how do we do that, guys? Well, we run back to his scripture. We remember that we have to worship him with our whole heart. And God just brings a great sense of peace and confidence that can overflow our lives as we make him our refuge, our safe place. Doesn't mean trouble ceases. Get that? Doesn't mean trouble stops. No, but it means that we now have a safe place in those times of trouble. Love you guys. God bless you all. Continue to put your faith in Jesus Christ with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and make sure that you keep him first in your life and make him a refuge in times of trouble, trusting in the Lord's timing for judgment on things which we ought not to be judging ourselves. Love you guys. God bless you all, and we will see you tomorrow morning.